Now we're back in the saddle and on the road with the men who have the staying power on one of cycling's great stage races.
Well, the sprayer fountain there in Geneva and the snow in the background, I think it's heralded a rather grotty day today because the conditions have got somewhat worse. So we're going to look back at what happened yesterday. We're running a bit behind time, sorry about that. And we're picking up here Moose and on his way towards getting the fastest time of the day, and then followed by Elmiger's teammate. That was situation 2 there, you see on your screen, with Moose pushing him down into second spot. And that's the way it stayed for an awful long time yesterday, until in the end the big guns started to fire. The lads in the green and white were certainly all fired up to do what they could do, because Phonak, their main sponsor, the big sponsor, is a Swiss-based company riding on bicycles made in Switzerland. A company's called BMC. We might have a chance of looking at those usual frames, because we're going up north of where they make the Emmental cheese, and that's got holes in it, as had their bottom brackets, but no holes in this man's leg as he went through to take the lead. Quite early on, by the way, and Britain's David Miller was going extremely well too quite early on. In fact, in the end, David was going to take 10th place on the time trial, the prologue time trial, which was just over 2 miles in distance, 3.2 kilometres. And Ben Brugger set off. Well, this man knows about prologues. He won the prologue of the Tour of Italy last year, and he set off here, you can see, going full bore around there, just a slight touch of the brakes, and in the end he came down that finishing straight, an absolute sprint all the way through to put him in the lead. His time then on the screen, you'll see it, at 4 minutes and 13 seconds, takes him into the lead on the Classement Général for today. So he has the leader's jersey, Moose in second spot, and Elmiger from Phonak team there into third. Well, certainly the Lotto team very pleased to have their... Whoops! This is rapid stuff. It reminds me of the old black and white film of the Charlie Chaplin. No Charlie Chaplin today, though. This is the Tour of Romandie. We're moving on to stage 1 proper. Well, I told you that things had turned rather grotty, and not only is it dismal and horrible on this 56th Tour of Romandie, on this particular stage 1 of the race, but the weather up in the mountains has been jolly chilly too as well. The race has taken the riders all the way up from Geneva, heading off, you look on your maps, in a sort of upwards and right direction up towards Lac de Neuchâtel. And as far as the riders are concerned, I suppose the best thing they could do is turn off and go for a bit of a swim in it, because awful conditions. But the race is going somewhat slower than schedule on the run into the finish today. Follow Lac de Neuchâtel, go along that one. We'll put you in the picture in a moment more exactly where we're going to finish, but get the top right hand corner of it up there towards VLBM, and then you'll be able to see north of there where we're going to finish. And this is the route you can see on your screen, and very much hilly stuff, by the way. In fact, the total climbing today will be 1,690 metres. They've got there 2 second category climbs and a third to finish. The official sheet shows us that the first climb is in fact a first category climb, so please forgive me on the graphics, because the official organisation have shown a first cat, but somehow the graphics are showing a second cat. And this will be the first day when the King of the Mountains jersey will be awarded whoever climbs over those 3 climbs a day. That last one, the third category climb you see on your screen there, comes only 9 kilometres from the finish. That's just under or just over 5 miles to run in towards the finish of the stage today. Well, I suppose April showers had to come to this part of the world, because I understand it's been pretty rough back in Great Britain too as well, and so it's finally blown over to Switzerland, but it hasn't dampened the ardour as ever of the Swiss spectators, who are quite used to pretty horrible conditions, because as you know, this part of the world is well known for its snow as well. As they come along towards the finish today, they'll go along the edge of the Franche Manche, and over the top of there is where the big mountains and the snow still persist. So not a nice day for bike racing. Sorry we're running a little bit behind schedule, but I don't think we've got any more live programmes to come after us to cause the usual, I'm going to say cock up then, but anyway, the usual problems we get from time to time when cycling overruns. So do bear with us. We've got one man out in the lead at the moment. His lead of 9 minutes and 40 seconds has now been cut back all the way through, and I think the rest of the pack are quite rightly huddling together out down the course as they come in towards the finish here, and I don't think they'll need to go to the showers today. Just a swift rub down with a sponge and a dry towel. That'll be enough for today. We're going to take a short break. Stay with us. Well, this lone rider heading in towards the finish at the stage today, Mallory Bevillard, 187 kilometres in all. That's 117 miles on stage one of the Tour of Romandie. He's gone away off the front of a rather dissolute bunch behind. Nobody seems to want to chase him down. He's already caught and overtaken the rather Mark Striel from the Landbook Credit team, who went away at the very start of the programme at one time, or the stage today, and at one time was somewhere around about 9 minutes and 46 seconds. We had one particular time check to him. Well, he began to fade in these conditions because the temperature got very cold indeed, around about 5 degrees, and a slight headwind. It's not too bad, but it's the cold wind that's causing the trouble. And so Zappieri here has now overtaken Striel, and behind the main bunch is only probably now something around about a couple of minutes in arrears, so I think his days are numbered as we get in toward the finish. We're just waiting for the exact locality of this one. The one information we had was we're getting round towards the clock town of La Chaux-de-Fonds. I think they're through that now, but we'll wait to see. The problem has been, those who've been watching our live programme and those who are watching the edited programme at some time later on, maybe tonight or tomorrow, you might wonder what the hell happened. Well, it was chucking it down with rain. It slowed the field down, and who can blame them under these horrible conditions? There you are, you can see on your screen this nice little place. That yellow dot in there, by the way, is not mould growing on the green land. That's the canton of Bern, where we're going through now. And if you're getting your maps out and trying to find where the hell we are, you can see the Lac de Neuchâtel. That's not difficult to pick up on your map of Switzerland. We're at the sort of left-hand side of it, quite close to the French border. And the race today, we run virtually in parallel to it up to the Bielersee, and then if you look up toward the north from Bielersee from a place called Biel, B-I-E-L, or depends what map you've got, it might be down as Bienne, B-I-E-N-E. Just up from there, you'll see this little town we're heading in for now at Mallory Bevillard. Well, those of you who've been watching our live programme, because I know we're going to cut and shot this somehow, but you might have seen some of the shots at the start of the people there at the Bevillard Mallory, and just waiting for this lot to come in. Not a big town by any means, but it's hosting the finish today. And you can see the riders here. Well, you won't only see this one at the moment. Certainly they'll be very pleased to get in there and get a welcoming shower and stay in the hotel and be ready for the stage tomorrow. Well, he's sort of hanging about now, is he, eh? Well, he's well and through there. Well, you can see now 30 kilometres to go. Well and truly through La Chaux-de-Fonds. We had that information some time back. They've actually gone through there. And now at Saint-Fiet, 30 kilometres to go to the finish. And that final climb of the day with just 9 kilometres to go from the finish, and then the run down in. So he could well be caught. This is a very main road, you see it here, and it stays like this for an awful long time. And then when we head up in towards the finish, going through a tunnel on a bit of a climb, so he's just got those 30 kilometres to go towards the finish of the stage today, and the situation on that rundown is probably the best part of the course, I suppose, as far as he's concerned, because it's a bit of a rundown here, and it's until we get the climb of the Col de Pierre Pertuis it starts to kick up again in toward the finish. So not bad for one man on his own, although again pretty miserable conditions with a slight drifting wind just making life difficult. So through La Chaux-de-Fonds, with its famous International Museum of Horology, and through the place where Monsieur Courvoisier was born. And those who are regular people watching Eurosport will know that I've got this sort of passing interest in architecture, although Mr. Courvoisier is not exactly top of my list. I know many people recoil from that because he's actually born Charles Edward Généré way back in 1887, and he was the man who started this modern style, really, of using concrete and steel and so on, and the buildings are very straight lined without any curves in them. And I always feel, as he now pontificating about architecture, I think there's some beauty in curves. And if you go to some of the greatest cathedrals in the world, and particularly some we've got in Great Britain, absolutely magnificent cathedrals, you'll see they look up in the roofs and the lovely shapes they've got, and you go outside and you see the flying buttresses. You can't build things in straight lines with any elegance to them. So sorry, Mr. Corbusier, or originally Mr. Charles Edouard Généré, doesn't exactly get me by the throat. Well, he does get me by the throat. It doesn't exactly put a warm, comforting arm around me looking at some of those modern buildings. And straight lines, I think they're just, I could go on for hours about this and say, well, shut up and get on with the bike racing. Right, back then with the bike racing. Here he's riding a Carrera bicycle. That's the same company that supplied the bicycles to people like Stephen Roche some years ago, who was a victor in this race 3 times. He holds the record, says he, turning it round from straight lines and Carrera into Stephen Roche from Ireland, and the green in the background is so appropriate because Stephen won in 83, 84 and again in 87, and he rode for the team that rode on Carrera bikes. It was a Carrera brand name as well, and I think the Carrera bit they had was to do with the clothing more than the bikes. But don't be confused either. If you wander into Halfords, they also had Carrera bikes in there, and somehow they managed to get the authority to use that Carrera brand as well. Don't know exactly how it came about. I think it dates back to the days of my friend Paul Moran that looked after the bike business there after I left the company. Certainly Carrera brand came on, and the other one they had was the Apollo brand, and Carrera then is a brand, if you go into Halfords, it's not quite connected with this one as far as I know. That's the bike being ridden by our rider out on the front who rides for the Taconi Sport team. Taconi Sport being a clothing manufacturer, and I think right now it'd be very welcome to have several layers of it as he splashes his way through on the awful conditions. In fact, on days like this is the hard man's day, and some riders relish riding into nasty conditions, and I can put my hand up on that one, because some riders just hate the conditions, other riders just revel in it on the basis that everybody's suffering, so they might just all make life even harder and try much harder. The thing about the warm weather or wet weather conditions, and I did get an email, a letter from somebody a bit back when I was saying that there's more oxygen in the air, and I think somehow the rain comes down through the sky. I don't know what it is, but you can breathe in on a nice rainy day and you'd really feel invigorated by the air coming up. Here you can, well, he ain't going to sprint, he's on his own now, a bit of a gallop when the main field comes through eventually, but they're very careful because look at all the white lines and the zebra crossings, and the straight line not so bad, but if you're twisting and turning, these can be very, very difficult conditions indeed. So he's on his way now, and the main pack will be coming along shortly after this one. So lousy conditions, but for some people enjoying the wet and horrible conditions which some of us enjoy and prefer. I said there about emails coming through. I know that some of you don't have email facilities, and in fact many of us, me included, and you might say, well, why not, David? Well, unless you can go and check your letterbox, what they call it, and carry a computer with you and check the letterbox every day or something, then you can be out of touch with the emails. Apart from that, you've got to reply to them. And whenever you're packing your bags and travelling all over the place, it's not easy to sit down and bash out replies. I should perhaps get one of these machines one day, but not at the moment. And so that is why I was very pleased to get that from Ted Reeve out there in Wilmcote, who said that he's very happy to have the address of Eurosport in London, where the postcode is WC1X8RX. So there's Zamperi still on the front of the stage, going into the stage finish at Mallory-Beviard. He's on the flatter part of the course now, I think much to the relief of many of the riders who are stuck behind him. And if you can't get on your old email system to send a story through, because then it has to come out to me and be faxed on to me from our people in headquarters in Paris, and then they can always resort to writing letters, but again, bear in mind when they go into our London office, they don't always come to me very quickly indeed. Sometimes they come a bit later, and I was fortunate to get one fairly quickly from this fellow Ted Reeve in Wilmcote, who said that thanks to the address, and I'll just repeat it for everybody, Eurosport's address in London is 84 Theobald's Road, 84 Theobald's Road. You can remember that, can't you? It's near Holborn, Holborn, And the postcode in London, this is the important bit, because Eurosport with the postcode I think will probably find us. So if you think a bit of paste and paper, you can always remember WC 1X 8RX. WC has nothing to do with the little place at the end of the corridor. WC 1X 8RX is the postcode of Eurosport in London. So if you haven't got one of these email things, then you can always whack one through there, and eventually it could be weeks, it could be months, it could be days, it should find its way through to me. In fact, when Ted Reeve wrote to me, he went on to say that, he said, you and I said, met at the World Championship in Varagam. I worked it out, it's 45 years ago. Wasn't I born then, Ted? No, you've let the bloody cat out of the bag, haven't you? He said, we're both in the pit area with Benny Foster and Bill Shillibert. Gosh, those are the days. In fact, I do remember that World Championship in Varagam. That was, I remember one of the riders from the British team, I'm not sure whether it was the pro team or the amateur team, cracked the head on his, the back of his, just behind his frame, just behind the head. The complete thing sheared just behind the head and completely sheared in two pieces, and had to go onto a spare bicycle. The buffeting and the bashing of the British bicycle over the cobbles, it wasn't built for that sort of thing, and eventually in the race it just went in two pieces just behind the head and at the lower one where the down tube goes. Well, remember that one very much indeed. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? This. Oh, he said he was able to go there to Belgium, rub shoulders with Anton Bagné, Gino Bartali, Alfredo Binda. Hey Ted, they're all dead. Right, back to the race. And back to the lad on his career bike, ploughing away here and staying out of trouble and staying out of our shots, by the way. You think, why can't we get the bunch? Well, the problem is that when you have the low clouds and miserable conditions, we have to fly the old helicopter, and many of us have told you about this over the years, but if you're new watching this afternoon and you've just switched on the old telly, and perhaps some of you have moved across to another channel which seems to have gone bust back in Great Britain, and so you won't be able to hear me if you put the funds, your housekeeping into another channel at the moment, but I'm sure all will resolve eventually. But those of you watching us on the satellite system or through the cable, wherever you are, as they're going through here, you can see the helicopters picking up the pictures here and beaming them forward. It picks it up off the motorcycle, that's the one here, and the helicopters can't always fly in the low clouds, and even if they could, sometimes they can't get the picture up. Something to do with, I suppose, the transmission through the wet. I'm not a technical man, but that's the background problem, why we can only pick up the individual rides like this, and eventually we'll go back and hope that we can get the camera. There again, the camera behind, we haven't heard, we're waiting on our headphones now to find out what's happening. It could well be that the motorcycle camera behind us has got well and truly soaked and can't transmit. Right, there we are. We're now looking at those who are in the top 100. Bettini is this year's, by the way, that's this year's run of the top 100. It's not the rolling top 100 where they carry forward the points which they got from the previous 12 months. This is just at this year, Bettini leading on the current rankings of the UCI events which we've had so far this season. There are the rest of them coming up there for you. Whoop, steady on the buffs. Oh, dear me. Watching the little numbers going, I just looked up and I saw the hated tram lines coming up in front, or train tracks. You can see 23 kilometres, you can see all that on the top, kind of gap now at 3 minutes. It was only 1 minute, certainly increased. Well, 23 kilometres, that's what, 4 8s is 32, no, less than that, 3 8s 24, so it's only 15 miles, so he's doing mental arithmetic in his head, so 15 miles to go, 3 minutes. He might just get this one, nobody behind seems to be too bothered, but if he does and still gets a lead like that, he's going to take the leader's jersey too. So somehow I think that in there the whip will be out, and those who've survived the course so far, those who haven't fallen off on their ear, those who haven't gone into the gutter, those who still got something left in their legs rather than being too chilled to ride their bicycles, they'll be setting out, I think, to try and do something about it. So as we do now look again, and we've got Fata Bertolo. Well, certainly the whip is out. I'm not surprised they say get stuck up down there. Tassato here has just been sent off down the road, I think, to try and make this lot behind begin to go a bit, because he rides for a team which got Vladimir Belli in the squad. Belli's been twice third in this race. We've got Basso here too, was third in Les Bassons-Liège last Sunday, so it's beginning to erupt. Sorry, 2 Sundays ago. It's beginning to erupt then. We're going to take a break. Please stay with us despite the conditions. That goes to you onto your cameras, or sorry, onto your I'm getting a bit I'm still there. I'm getting all sorts of messages coming through because we've lost all the pictures, we've lost all the radio, telephone, everything seems to have gone down now in the rain, and so we'll put you in the pictures as soon as we can do. But for those of you who are still getting the pictures out of the sky from Eurosport, yes, we're still on air. We weren't part of the problems that have been. Those of you who are getting it on the terrestrial digital system will have lost what I'm saying now. Those of you with the satellites or the cable will still be in touch with us. We're not in touch with the race, so we're going to take a short break.